This is the Son of the Law podcast. Hey everybody, welcome. Welcome to the Son of the Law podcast. I'm your host, Jay Christopher. Joining me in my home today, I'm getting away from calling it the studio. It just seems cold and disconnected. Are Austin and Andy. Austin Johnson, Andy Warner. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
I'm so glad to have you here. And I'm really looking forward to our conversation today because there are things about you that I don't think people of L-Town know, that only I do. But we're going to go public, and it's going to be fantastic. So get ready, listeners, because this is exciting. From the third chair, you're going to hear from two awesome dudes right here in the L-Town, 64062. Before we talk, I want to say thank you to everyone who has listened up to this point. And I have some interesting things I'm trying to work through because up till this point, we've been doing this for about, 2-3 months now. And I've listened and I've watched the followers go from, none to more and more and more. And recently I was informed that I lost my first follower. So on my application that shows what the audience looks like, it says -1 listener. And I just want to tell you, -1, that I miss you. I miss you a whole lot. And you're not supposed to read the comments. And so at this point, I'm looking at the analytics and I'm just saying like, man, -1, where'd you go? So here it is. I demand an answer. You've left me. You've left the Son of the Law community. The third chair is disappointed. The world is not okay. We need to know where you went. And so if that was you that went -1 this week, please let me know.
You left before your most riveting episode.
That's right. Yeah, we're getting ready to talk about. Well, I'll save that. What we're going to talk about here in just a little bit. I want to unpack that. Right. All right. Let me introduce you guys. Austin Johnson, Andy Warner, gentlemen I met at church. These guys do stuff together. We do man stuff together. They're excellent husbands, awesome fathers. They're super involved with their kids, and I mean that in like the best way, because it's been very difficult to get around the table here because y'all are so involved with your respective families that it's very difficult to get together. And anyway, we finally made it happen. Excited about that. You care about people and very willing servants, and at the same time, you're still kind of guys, which I respect. Austin, specifically 6'2", cut up body, very muscly. And he likes it.
It's true.
He's very serious, but playful. He's athletic. He's a guitarist. He's the type of guy you kind of find yourself wondering, is there anything this man can't do?
There's plenty. Yes.
But, I didn't think he liked me for a few months, and we'll talk about that for a little bit. You've heard the term RBF. Austin has a resting bro face. And, when you're like me and you kind of take social cues based on the way people talk to you, somebody like Austin is not going to give you many of those cues. So I thought he didn't like me for a little bit. And but we've got to the point now where we're on a hugging level now. But even then, it got a little that was a little awkward. One time we were hugging, we did like the dap up brother deal. You snapped it with the right hand, bring it in. You do 2 pats on the back with the left hand. But things got a little awkward when our ears hit, and they hit at such an angle that it was so perfect that they cupped together and they made a suction.
Perfect suction.
It was a perfect suction. And I went like right as we were pulling away. And I'm like, I wanted to be close, but not that close.
Yeah. And that's how I got COVID. Yeah. The ear suction. If you want to transmit an illness quickly, you suction the ear.
It's getting a little warm in this room.
That's right. It's like a plunger. Awkward silence.
Toasty.
Right. Not to be undone. Andy Warner, 6'5", mountain of a man. Seriously, like the brawny man. Is there another caricature that you would identify with more than the brawny man? Flannel,
The guy on the
lumberjacky.
Duluth Trading Company commercials.
Yeah,
His pants are kind of coming down a little
that's
bit.
fantastic. I was thinking about that. And the guy who like punches a bear.
Or him, yeah.
Yeah, when he's like
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that guy. And I love
Who
you.
doesn't? Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thanks for the coffee.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Welcome to my home. Your humor is so dry and fast sometimes that you don't know how to take it. I say that because there have been many times Andy has made a joke, and maybe you'll have the pleasure, third chair, of getting an Andy joke long after the joke's been made today. You hear the joke, you think about it, I'm like, okay, I don't understand that. And then about 30 seconds later, you go, oh, that was actually really funny, and I'm not bright enough to understand.
Or you laugh and he keeps the straight face, and now you really start to question it, right?
Exactly. That's fantastic.
Most people think I'm serious or rather rough when I try to, internally, I feel the opposite of I'm just having a good time and trying to be fun. But I think sometimes my size plays into people are like, hey, I
Intimidation.
think he's serious, but I'm really not.
That's right.
I'm very rarely serious.
Well, let's talk about your strength for a second. I had two stories that I could share. The
Go
first,
on.
I'll share one, and maybe the other. It will come up, maybe not. I don't know. But you know, when you want to jack around with somebody, especially like me, you know, you come up, you use your size to your advantage. You like say, "Oh, I'll get you," or whatever, and I'll push you around a little bit. I was like coming up to Andy right after a soccer game. Our kids were, I don't know how old were they? Like, it was probably 6, 8, 10 years ago, maybe. It was a long time ago. And I'm poking around at Andy and thinking, oh, this is going to be fun. He'll poke back. And it was fun until Andy grabbed me like a child, picked me up and put me on his shoulder and spun me around like a helicopter. And I'm not a small guy. As today, I'm about 6 foot, let's call 6 foot even. And 205, 210. And you just threw me around like a rag doll. And anyway, I thought that was crazy.
Now, I'm going to turn the table a little bit because so far in your podcast, Chris, you've dipped the toe into the water
Dip the toe.
of Chris Bollinger. Like we've got to see little bits of Chris, but I want to tell a story.
I want to see more.
Yes,
This is completely off script.
it is. So our family's getting to know your family. You have us over for the first time. This is 10 years ago.
Oh boy.
I remember because our daughter's 12 now. She was about 2 then.
Yeah.
So you have us over for dinner. We enjoyed dinner. We're sitting at the kitchen table. 2 sides of the kitchen table are chairs. This is at your old home.
Mm-hmm.
And the other 2 sides are like bench seats, right?
Yeah.
Wrap around
Yeah, we had like
a wall.
a bay window that chairs never really fit well back in there, and we needed the space.
Right. So I'm sitting on a chair side, and my wife and daughter are sitting on one of the bench seat sides, and you're on the opposite corner.
Okay.
And so we've enjoyed dinner. We're just sitting there talking. And now, a couple things. I'm going to use a double negative. I've never not felt welcome in your presence. You're a charismatic, welcoming individual.
Thank you.
I might also add that you could be like spastically spontaneous.
Yes.
Yeah, you agree?
Yeah. Yeah. Which has gotten me in trouble more times than it's gotten me appreciated.
Okay. So we're sitting there talking, and then I look in the corner of my eye and I see Chris. He looks like a cat who was just like resting calmly, and then all of a sudden just became intent on one focus. And that focus was my daughter. And so then he proceeds to reach out and he grabs my daughter by the upper arms and then gets the most intense look on his face, like face turning red, eyes wide, like as wide as they can be, and like he's like shaking. He's not shaking her violently,
No,
but he's
it
just
was
like,
just like a vibrating.
yes. And in my head, I'm like, what is he doing, and where did this come from? And when he lets go, my daughter, the only thing she knows to do is she just points at him.
That's right.
She's pointing at him for like the next 5 minutes, and she turns and is crying.
And all she can say
to
is,
my wife.
You.
But yes, but at first, like, it's one of those cries where nothing comes out, like it's just silent, and you know as soon as they take that deep breath, it's gonna get loud.
Oh gosh.
Oh man, and in my head, I'm just like, what just happened?
Why did he just do that?
And then Chris was like, oh, should I have not done that? Like, was that a bad thing?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Socially, I'll just go right there. I have no personal space. I'll climb right into the uncomfortable and whatnot. But yeah, especially with the kids. My kids, they kind of know that about me. I will rough them up and grab them and, wrestle them around and whatnot. And I forget that not everybody does that same way with their kids. And my kids, they got to the point where they loved that. They would see me get serious and they're like, oh no, here he comes. But when, you do that to a perfect stranger, it doesn't always come out great. But Maya and I are cool now.
yes,
We're cool.
She still points at you. There he is.
Yeah. She's like, I remember you.
From my youth.
That's right. All right, gents, tell us about yourselves, your ties to the Lawson area, how people in the community might know you.
yeah. So grew up here.
Austin.
Yeah, Austin.
Making sure everybody knows the voices first.
Grew up in Lawson. Graduated from here 2005. Always felt drawn to come back after college. Lived away for a little bit, but as we came back, stayed involved in the church. Probably might have seen me in some sporting events, baseball, basketball, flag football, things like that. Yeah, that's about it. I think so.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
This is Andy. I would like to start with a belated Happy Valentine's Day to you two.
Thank you.
We had a good evening yesterday. I, from Platte City, spent most of my growing up there. After graduation, I went to William Jewell College and tried to graduate a semester early, but I met my future wife there. And after graduation, she then graduated a semester early so we could get married at the most appropriate time, which was the heart of winter in Chicago. So after that, cold start to our marriage, we found an old house built in the late 1800s that she said, hey, I think you can fix that. And I didn't really have a lot of tools at the time, and there wasn't YouTube. So I had some basic skills, like nunchuck skills,
Bow hunting skills?
bow hunting skills, but I didn't really know how to fix up a house skills. So I muddled my way through it, and still here, still in the same house. Actually, kind of like it now. But that's kind of been my life is, not knowing anyone here in town, moving here as a stranger. I'd never been to Lawson before. We literally bought the house the day we came here. And so we've slowly, she put roots in much faster than I did.
Mm-hmm.
My roots grow slower than most. So yeah, we really enjoyed this community, and now we have 3 kids we're trying to raise in it.
That's awesome. Roots Growing Slow sounds like a country music song.
Are you about to sing for us?
No, but I
Oh.
was just thinking like
I've heard you sing.
Country Gold on Saturday nights. That's some of my favorite,
I agree.
Randy Travis, Deeper Than the Holler comes to mind. I won't sing that for you. All right, rapid fire questions. Because we have so much to talk about, we're going to go quick here. One word answer, pizza or tacos?
Pizza.
Tacos.
Morning person, night owl?
Night owl.
You can change in life. I was a night owl. I'm now a morning person.
Really?
Yeah. Just happened like a year ago.
Okay. Would you rather have superpowers or unlimited money?
Superpowers.
Same.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm Iron Man all day long.
Mm.
Regular dude. We can do cool things with a lot of cash. Cats or dogs?
Dogs. There's no point in cats.
Small dog or a big cat? Either one.
I wonder, is a small dog a big cat? That's a good rapid fire question.
Small
for
dog could
another
get beat up
episode.
by a big cat.
That's awesome. Marvel or DC?
I couldn't tell you the difference.
Andy does not compute.
That's fine. Oh, that's awesome.
Marvel. He likes Marvel.
Okay. How do you PB and J? You can elaborate a little bit on this one.
I skip the J and just put the PB on the spoon straight in the mouth.
That's it.
No bread.
PB only.
Yeah. I try to look like Austin, so I go no carbs, like for an hour.
I eat plenty of carbs. Don't listen to him. I'm just regular peanut butter and jelly, creamy.
I agree with you there. Definitely.
The crunchy
creamy.
is a facade. It's out there, and I think it makes people feel more manly that they say they do crunchy peanut butter.
How about you? Crunchy or creamy?
Me, I'm crunchy.
I figured.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that. I just think it's as God intended it.
Incomplete, not fully processed.
That's what Lee says. He's like, it's not done. Why would you leave skins on your mashed potatoes? Peel them. All right. Football or basketball?
Football.
Okay. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Neither.
Netflix binge or a single episode?
Binge.
Just sit down and crank through
Yep.
it. What are you watching right now?
I was watching on Amazon Prime has a president episode of each president. So that's what I'm watching. My kids hate it, but I love it.
That's fantastic. Bet you, Austin.
I'm kind of following my kids right now, watching Ryan Trahan.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
No, he's a funny kid.
Okay.
And then just kind of started putting on Nate Land podcast.
Okay.
So.
True or false? Pineapple belongs on a hamburger.
False. It belongs on pulled pork sandwich.
Okay.
Make it a Hawaiian.
Okay.
Pineapple just by itself, dipped in some salt water in the Pacific. Amazing.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
No burger.
No, not at all. Not even close.
That's fantastic. Books or movies?
Books.
What are books?
What are books?
Yeah, it's movies.
It's all movies. Spicy or mild food?
Mild.
I did the one chip challenge, and I can no longer do spicy. It has to be mild now.
I have been wanting to try that.
No,
and I haven't
do it.
done it.
Don't.
Seriously?
I don't think you can finish it. You're probably not up to
I
it.
would not wish it on my worst enemy.
Why?
I would not do it for $1 million.
What was so bad about it?
It.
You
hurt-
wouldn't do it for $1 million?
No.
I call BS.
No, I've done it before. You could have it stacked on this table right
I watched
now.
the video of him, and it was
I have
horrific, but I think you can do it, Chris.
All right. Amusement park or hiking trail?
Oh, hiking trail.
Yep.
Workout at home or at a gym?
Jim.
Birds or bees?
Nice segue. The birds.
Birds.
All right. Let's talk about ornithology. Really? Like that's the transition, Chris? Yeah, that's the transition.
That's a tough one to spell.
I tried to think about ways we could get into this without explaining myself away, and hopefully it'll make its way out. But here we go. Ornithology is the scientific study of birds and is a branch of zoology. Ornithologists study birds in a variety of ways, including collecting specimens, conducting field research, and conducting laboratory research. Question: are you ornithologists?
No.
Aviary enthusiasts?
Yes.
Getting there.
Mm-hmm.
Bird aficionados?
Andy is.
I'm just bored.
I don't think so. I think, and we'll talk more about this. This has been my take on it. Birds are a representation of the creation that we were meant to enjoy. You get to go see it, and they are multicolored, beautiful, and as diverse as the day is long. So looking forward to talking more about this. Have you ever heard of the board game Wingspan?
We own it.
It's true.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Kids love it.
That's fantastic. I was under I've never heard of this game until somebody told me about it. And so for the sake of our third chair, I'll go through just a bit. Wingspan is a competitive, medium-weight, card-driven, engine-building board game from Stonemaier Games. You are bird enthusiasts, researchers, bird watchers, ornithologists, and collectors seeking to discover and attract the best birds from your network of wildlife preserves. Each bird extends a chain of powerful combinations in one of your habitats. These habitats focused on several key areas of growth. You can gain food tokens, lay eggs using egg miniatures, draw from hundreds of unique bird cards, and play them. The winner is the player with the most accumulated from birds, bonus cards, end-of-round goals, eggs, cached food, and tucked birds. So you've heard of the game. Is it fun to play?
It is.
It is, yeah. It's very representative of
what you do.
Yeah.
Somebody put some thought into it.
Really?
And just for clarity, we're not laying the eggs. I think the birds are.
I don't think anybody was confused or questioning that. That's awesome. We had Leon as a fun farmer, and he has chickens now, and they're laying about a dozen eggs every couple of days. And
It's a brick of gold.
It is right now. Do you know how much a dozen eggs is going for right now? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible. We were on vacation this summer at a farmer's market in the Southwest. Do you know what a dozen eggs, farm fresh raised, cost down there for a dozen at a, pretentious farmer's market in Santa Fe?
$3 hairs.
$1 dozen for 1 dozen eggs.
$1 an egg.
$1 an egg. Bro, when I eat some eggs, man, it's like 4 or 5 eggs at a time.
Yeah. I eat 3 eggs every morning.
I don't think you could have afforded eggs in Santa Fe.
We're hitting the poorhouse.
Expensive omelet.
All right. How I'd like to segue here in the main content here is read what a PBS script for bird watching would be. So imagine it's Saturday morning. You got your coffee in hand. Oh, Andy, right on time. You got your coffee in hand. You're getting ready to watch a PBS show about birding. And this is what I envision it would sound like. Whether you're a seasoned birder or just someone who's curious about the birds in your backyard, today's episode has something for everyone. From spotting that rare migratory species to identifying your everyday feathered friends, we've got it all covered. Remember, it's not just about the birds. Bird watching connects us to nature in ways that's soothing and honestly a little magical.
And you just lost another listener.
I know.
Come back.
No, please. Thank you. Right. It sounds so goofy. And it's I literally just introduced you to as guys, strapping men, you know what I mean? And this is not the type of thing that you would expect that your type of folks to be doing. It's like, I don't want to say even especially in Lawson, but like especially in Lawson. And maybe this is a cancel comment here. What is the stereotypical birder? Right? What do they look like? Describe their personality. Describe them physically. What do they wear? Like, what's the stereotype? It's not you.
No, I mean, if you thought of it, you would not be far off. Like, they drive a Subaru. They're wearing they're Subaru Outback. They're wearing the brown and the green vest.
That's what I'm saying.
They've got the hat, the
bucket
white
hat.
beard, the glasses. Yeah.
They scowl at you if you...
Like a Panama Jack hat?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, no.
No, not a pen. That'd be kind of cool, though. I
like a
actually
safari?
did that in Hawaii.
Okay.
But no, it's more of just the oversized
Bucket hat.
kayaker, yeah, hat. Just keep the sun off, and there's a lot happening to describe the typical birder.
Yeah, and I would just say too, like they're old.
Yes, that's the thought.
And you have to, and you can be the judge what old is, but why do you suppose that's the stereotype? And maybe if we can get a little philosophical here, what have the people who have figured out bird watching got on the rest of us? What are they noticing that the average person who's just moving about the cabin doesn't really appreciate when looking at birds? Like, what are the older people who maybe slowed down a little bit, who are enjoying the simple and the, cost-free community of bird watching? What do they got figured out that the rest of us don't?
I think time is the thing they have that most of us don't. I've gone all over the country, and I always run into them. I've met very few of your stereotypical birders that aren't extremely kind people.
Really?
Yeah. And from, looking on the outside, as Austin said, they park in the compact car spot, get out of their Subaru, and they have the look on their face like, hey, I'm here, I don't want anyone else to talk to me. And you just kind of like, they put off this aura of, man, I don't want to go talk to that person. They don't seem welcoming. They're not wearing flannel. They don't have facial hair,
Or a flat-billed hat.
Or a flat-billed hat.
We stand out like sore thumbs. I tell you what, man.
They're not driving an
That's what I'm gonna
SUV,
say.
pulling up, with Randy Travis playing, for instance. So they have a lot of electric light orchestra, it would be my guess. And, when you see them get out and they turn the ELO down and you're like, I just don't want to ask that person anything. I have many times. I'm like, hey, how are you? What are you guys here looking for? What species you hoping to see? And most of them end up being extremely nice people. Now you have your, oddities. You have some folks that just are there for themselves and they don't want to talk to anybody.
That's every discipline, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But on the whole, they are extremely generous, helpful people, and they're happy to see someone younger doing something they are passionate about.
Yeah. Brilliant. So how did you all get interested in bird watching? And how long have you been doing it?
So around 2018, I watched a movie that most every birder is going to be like, oh, okay, yeah. Some might like it, some think it's a joke. But Owen Wilson, Jack Black, and Steve Martin, this movie called The Big Year. I had no idea what it was about. I just liked all three of them.
Yeah.
And I was like, a movie with them together has to be good. And I watched it, and I really wasn't big on it at first. I'm like, this is dumb. Like, now I also grew up hunting. So bringing the bird identification to duck hunting is something you kind of have to do so you don't violate the law.
Right.
And there's all sorts of weird limits on species, and there's hens and there's drakes, and you have to know what you're shooting, and you have to be able to make a split-second decision if you have a bird coming at an angle from the side, can I shoot that or not? I don't want to get in trouble. I hunt in a lot of conservation areas, so I have to be careful. So starting, when I started duck hunting in 7th grade, from that point on, I had to learn to ID birds, specifically ducks, on the fly. And being in the marsh, being outside, you do see, a lot of different species, but it wasn't anything I ever paid attention to. I'd gone on several vacations and didn't really pay attention to things. Austin went on some later that I had gone on, and he was like, oh, this is what I saw. And I was like, oh, I was there and I didn't even look. I didn't care at the time.
Right.
But when I watched that movie, it kind of made me think like, hey, I'm outside a lot and it'd be fun to do this, but I thought it was a joke. And it's kind of like trees for me. People would be like, what kind of tree is that? Like if you're walking, and it bothered me when I couldn't say, I didn't, if I didn't say, oh, that's a maple, that's an oak. I didn't know. I do a lot of woodworking. So to me, I kind of like to know the trees. So identifying trees came much earlier in life for me, and I'm still not great at it, especially in the winter when there's no leaves, but that kind of turned into birds. After watching that movie, I realized, oh, there is kind of this culture of people who look at this stuff, and they, like anything, people make a sport out of anything.
Sure.
And I didn't really look at it that's not what intrigued me. It intrigued me that you can travel and you can go places and you can see things that most people just walk right past.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
don't ever take the time to pay attention to. And it was a really funny movie, so I watched it a few more times. And so what really kicked it off for me was around that same time in 2018, my brother's a wildlife biologist in Kansas, and he was going to Western Kansas do you remember the name of that?
It's
Cheyenne Bottoms.
Yes, good.
Yeah, Cheyenne Bottoms is the wildlife area. It's just basically giant protected lowland. Has some salt marshes close by. Just a unique habitat. And he was going out there for a state like bird IDing class that the state employees had to go to. And I'd never even heard of it. And he was like, yeah, it's kind of a cool place to come. You can come with me if you like. And so I went with him out there. I had nothing to do. He let me borrow his car. And so I drove this area and I'm like, this is one of the best places in the Midwest to see things. So I started keeping track. So May of 2018 is what really kicked it off for me. Shortly after watching The Big Year, kind of putting a few things together that I'm outdoors a lot. I appreciate creation. I love seeing things that I can identify.
Yeah.
And it's just something that I can say that I do mostly to just make a joke out of it.
Right. But deep down, it's like not really a joke.
Deep down, I enjoy, and it's funny you say the typical birder, and I can go into it later, but the amount of people from kids to adults that never that I would think would care because of whatever they do in life. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, that was a really cool bird. What is that? And I'm like, oh, that's a hooded warbler. And they're like, how do you know that? And people are like, are you being serious? Are you not? And I just love creating that awkwardness with people because I'm usually right on the bird identification and they have no idea if I'm making it up or not. So sometimes you can have fun with that.
What do you mean that's a tufted titmouse?
I'll identify a bird and my wife will question me on it. She's like, I don't think so. I'm like, really?
It's like you're playing Scrabble and you call a word and like you can make them look it up.
Yeah. So
how about you, Austin?
Yeah, for me, it was actually because of Andy. So April of 2019, up to this point, like he'd in conversation just be referencing birds or that's whatever. And I was one of those people that's like, okay, enough about the birds. Like I'm not getting into this. This is not another hobby I'm going to like jump into, right? Yeah. I'm not interested. But our families, April 2019, we went on a vacation together to Gulf Shores, Alabama. And while we were down there, I mean, it was April. I mean, it's nice to be on the beach, but it was cold. Mm-hmm. And it was about midweek, I think. And he had been talking about going to this place called Dauphin Island, not Dolphin, Dolphin.
Dauphin.
Yes. And he said, hey, tomorrow morning, I'm going to get up and leave at 4 a.m. so that I could be in Dauphin Island at 6 a.m. because it was a 2-hour drive. And I just went back and forth in my head. Do I want to sleep in, go out on the cold beach and just sit there? Or get up and go do something different?
Yeah.
Right.
Let's go on an adventure.
So like the day prior was almost over and just finally like shotgun. I was like, okay, I'll go with you. 4 a.m. I'll be ready. So we get up the next morning, 4 a.m., get in the van, drive 2 hours to Dauphin Island. And it was just like a whole new world was open. Like by the time the day was done, I was like, give me more. I want more. Like this is because up to this point, like a bird was a bird was a bird. I didn't, you don't ever stop and think about it. But then the reason we went is because it was prime migration. Dauphin Island is like the number 4 location in the United States to go birding, especially at this time. And we just happened to be there at the perfect time. And the amount of colorful birds that were coming in that you just don't see around here very often was amazing. And I was just drawn to it immediately.
That's excellent. All good things. What equipment do you start with? Like, how do you even do it? Like, what's the process for going bird watching?
So for Father's Day in 2018, so a month after I came back from Cheyenne Bottoms, my wife was like, "Oh, great, you picked an old man hobby," is what she said to me.
Which is about the truth for every hobby I think that you have, Andy. I mean, you whittle wood, you turn pens, you polish your guns. Old,
Yeah.
you what? Listen to old historic,
old Patsy Cline music with historical documentaries.
I think you're not even 40. I don't think.
So she, for Father's Day, she was like, tried to surprise me with an adventure. Sort of, we're heading down to Warsaw to go camping with my dad and my family, and she goes, "Hey, I booked a little excursion in Arrow Rock, Missouri, I believe." So we stopped. I had no idea where we were, and we get to this place, and it was like Missouri Audubon, but an MU extension office. And this lady comes out, and she's like, "Oh, you guys are here for the birding tour," and I'm like, "Birding tour? What?" And it's close to the Missouri River, so she had, I remembered, she had a Vortex 8x10 binos with her, and I didn't have anything. I was not prepared for this, and so we kind of started, and she pointed out a Mississippi kite and an indigo bunting, and I didn't know what these things were. We're kind of walking down, and I'm like, but I had at Cheyenne Bottoms, I had seen, I think, 54 species the month before, which was kind of my first time I kept track of anything.
Yeah.
So I started keeping track of a few on what we saw on this trip. But I asked her the same question. What are things that you need? And she says, you need to find a good pair of binoculars. She goes, I like Vortex. So I then spent the next year researching the best binoculars to get. And I had gone up to all the local out sporting goods stores, and Brownells up in Iowa has a really nice viewing set of high-end glasses. I ended up settling on Vortex. Vortex and Swarovski had the best optics for me, but I wasn't going to pay Swarovski prices.
Yeah.
And
what are we talking price-wise? I mean, a few $100?
No, so the Swarovskis are a couple $1,000.
What?
For
binoculars.
Yeah, but they're amazing. And I've looked through them. I've looked through some Swarovski scopes, but if I owned one, I wouldn't bring it out into the woods. That's just kind of how I would be with it.
Okay.
So I settled with Vortex, and mine was a 12x50. I wanted to see further, so I kind of look like someone on top of a destroyer, like a seaman on a destroyer with these huge binoculars. But I don't find them too heavy, and their warranty's amazing on them. I had to send it in one time because one of my focal adjustment knobs kind of came loose. I just asked for a new piece, and they're like, "Nope, sending you a whole new set." So,
oh wow,
so it was nice.
Okay,
but,
so worth the price of that admission.
Worth the price, and so that you're spending $500-600, depending if you can get them on discount sometimes.
Right.
12x50 is a big set. A lot of guys do an 8x10. It's kind of the preferred bird watching optic. Is they say like an 8x10 zoom. It gives you a nice wide angle. I just like to see things further than other people, so I can brag. But
yeah. And anything else? I mean, it's how do you document, and how do you actually confirm that that's what you've seen? Don't you have like I think maybe Austin, you were telling me about it. You've got something that attaches to your camera on your phone, and then you can attach that to the sight glass within your binocular, so you can like take pictures and stuff. Use your phone as a.
Yep.
Is that right?
So I went with a pair of Vortexes also, like a step down from Andy's. But there's a company out there called PhoneScope, and so it's like a phone case with an adapter to where you can hook you set your phone into it, but then the adapter attaches your phone to the binoculars. So now you can look through the binoculars and even use your camera to zoom in even closer and get a good picture of the bird that you're.
Or takes videos too.
Yeah,
just like normal iPhone usage, but
through the eyes of a set of binoculars.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
which is already a pretty good camera. So by the time you stack the binocular lens on it, it I mean, that revolutionizes a game.
Yeah. But I mean, if you're starting basic, like get you a pair of binoculars. If you want to go old school, you can go with a book, but it's much easier today. There's a couple apps out there that are
a book for identifying the birds.
Correct,
You
yeah,
mean? Okay, so you say that's
Audubon
old school.
Society makes like they split the continent, or they split the U.S. in half, basically the east, the eastern half and the western half, kind of where the mountains are.
Yeah.
With the plains, because plains birds are different than mountain birds, different than the East Coast. So there's a lot, and every year they add a few more. It seems. I'm not sure where these birds are coming from, but they create more, and subspecies. They find something that the ornithologists find things that make a species unique or different than something that looks similar. So the books are nice, but yeah, the apps are the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There's 3 of them out there that we utilize regularly, mainly for tracking, identifying, or just seeing what's in your area. Right?
Yeah, and so what are the apps? Just so that if somebody's inspired by this, right, I'd like it to be educational, and then at the same time, like give them a bit of a head start on the person who just has no idea what they're talking about. So what would you download right now if you were interested in bird watching?
My first go-to, and it's the first one that Andy told me about, and it is the one that I figured out how to use the quickest, and it's called Merlin.
The first one was just the Audubon app.
Yeah, but I didn't start with that one.
You didn't start with that one?
I started with Merlin. It was
Merlin Bird ID
it's come a long way.
Yeah.
And when I first started, it didn't have this feature. Now it has the feature of sound identification.
Okay.
And it didn't have that early on. And so imagine me like super interested in identifying birds. And so we get home after this vacation and I go to Watkins Mill, which is a great birding location, and I'm hearing birds everywhere. And I'm like, I don't know what, like, I can't identify anything. Like, it's just chaos in my ears,
This is fantastic.
But
and like the average person is out there for a run.
Yeah,
And
they're walking by me like, this guy's having a mental breakdown right now.
Emotional crisis over it. I can't tell what it is.
But now there's sound identification where you just hit the button and it'll tell you what it's not 100% truth. Like you can't say, okay, that's exactly what it is. But,
right. Kind of get you in the ballpark. Though.
Yes. So you can utilize that. You can take pictures and upload them to the app, and it'll get you the
photo ID. I find the most beneficial,
as long as you got a good picture.
Yeah. And utilizing, the phone scope, and I'm not into photography. I've seen birders out there with. These are massive cameras, and I'm not willing to go to that length. I have one camera that has a zoom that I took. On the cruise we went to in Hawaii, I took that, and that helped me identify some stuff that was just so far away that I was able to kind of like, I think that's what it is. And then as I could put it on my computer and make it bigger. Oh, okay, that's what it is. So, but for most things, you don't need to go to that extent. Audubon app was the first one I downloaded, and they're all free. And that just kind of gives you a backyard. What's in my backyard? What are people in my neighborhood or my city seeing?
Right.
And then you can change the location. It's difficult. So after using the Audubon app for a few months, found Merlin Bird ID, like through the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. So then you make an eBird account, and eBird's the third app. So you have eBird and Merlin Bird ID, but they're also synced. So the best way to do it from the beginning is you go to ebird.org, make an account. My name's Audubon Andy. What's yours?
I hope that would come up.
Yeah, I'm just playing Austin Johnson. So
yeah, Audubon Andy was not taken because I had done this early on, so I got dibs on cool names. So once you have an account,
Austin Johnson is a cool name too, by the way.
It is not as cool as mine.
That's true.
So once you have that account, all it does is it allows you to keep track, and you can search on their website, which it has come a long way through the updates. The eBird app also allows you to keep a life list of everything you have that's new that you spot for the first time, because they also have tracks. So if you're going to go out birding for a day, eBird tracks migrating birds or, birds that are non-migratory. They want to know their habitats and how they're doing. Are they endangered? Are they traveling?
Sure.
And so it's a science-based initiative to track them worldwide. So it's really neat to see. You can select any country in the world and there's birders. It's a huge thing. It's like a global team.
It's literally crowdsourcing the data that you'd need for studying the bird population.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
And it is, and it gets people into it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've found, going back to your, so through these apps, they're extremely user-friendly, they're free, and it allows you to kind of look back, and it's almost like a diary of where you've gone, what you've seen, and especially, as you start getting up there in numbers, you're like, did I see that bird? And you kind of go back and check.
How many birds have you seen? As he pulls up his phone.
This is a great tie-in to a story.
Is it?
Yeah.
Go on. I'm listening.
Do it.
So, mine's 266.
266 different birds?
Yeah. In the grand scheme of things, it's not that much, but what's yours, Andy?
458.
All right. So
that's a lot of birds.
There's a little over 800 species in North America.
Okay.
So to put that into perspective, remember I told you about the first day I went birding with Andy. The first place we went to was a place called Pelican.
This is on Dauphin Island.
Dauphin Island, yeah. 2019.
Which is, I think, nationally known at least for bird watching, right? I mean, Dauphin is a nature preserve. It's a sanctuary for wildlife.
Turtles, birds, but more importantly, one of the largest ironclad battles of the Civil War in Mobile Bay took place right there.
Really?
You ever heard the term, damn the torpedoes, full steam ahead?
No, but I have now.
Okay, well,
so help me.
that was stated by a Union general who was trying to blow the blockade to get into Mobile Bay to cut off the South and kind of win the war from the economy shipping aspect.
Okay.
And so that
were they successful?
They were.
Okay.
That all took place right between Dauphin Island and the little point that comes off kind of Gulf.
Is that Fort Morgan?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Fort Morgan and Dauphin Island, there's a little like gate, just a little open water. It's really shallow. We were out in the water for a while, but yeah, a huge ironclad battle took place there.
Thank you for that step back into history, Andy. You're welcome.
I was going to say back to Austin.
So we went out.
It really is a PBS special.
First place we go to is this place called Pelican Island. Is really more of like a peninsula. So we're walking out, and the whole reason we're out here is because Andy is looking for this one bird that he hadn't seen yet, and it was a kind of a rare one to see. It was called a piping plover. And so we're walking.
I thought he was looking for a blue-footed booby.
I'm
always looking for one.
So we're walking out, and it's not a short jaunt. How long was it? Like a mile? It felt like it.
Yeah, it was at least a mile walk out to the point.
Right. So we're walking
on the beach.
On the beach together. And it's cold.
This story could go a lot of ways.
It could. It's cold, windy. Like Andy's wearing shorts. I think I was too. I don't know. It is not in the most enjoyable walk.
Yeah,
anyway.
On the edge of no fun.
Yeah. But we're looking for this piping plover. We walked for an hour or so. And we're getting to the end. I'm like, great, we walked all the way out here. We haven't seen this dang bird. And then we see something like 10 feet from the edge of the water, like as far as you could possibly walk on this peninsula. And there's a bird about 10 feet away from the water. And we get out there, and that was it. Like just out in the middle of nowhere. We walked all this way, and it's standing out there. We see this bird.
And it is it's an endangered species. So to find it down there was not uncommon, but still a pretty cool find.
Well, and satisfaction, right? I mean, it's kind of the story, right? You set the narrative of the hero. He endures struggle, right? He builds up, and then boom, there it is, right? Glory.
We walk out as far as we can, and there's the bird. And then on the way back, we see 3 more. So, but while we're out, okay, we saw the bird, and I was excited for Andy, hey, and the bird he had been trying to see for a long time, at least the past year maybe, Like that was the first bird I saw.
That was my number one goal when we decided we were going to Gulf Shores. I wanted to find that bird.
What's it called?
Piping plover.
The piping plover.
So we see them. All right.
You can't make this up, man. This is so funny.
So the story revolves around bird count. Your life list is what it's called. And so we're happy we see the bird. We turn around to start walking back, and we see this very stereotypical birder.
Very stereotypical.
Yes. And he's got a long scope, and he's looking way out in the water.
He's in the water.
He's in the water, yeah.
He's waded out in the waterways, has a tripod, has the hat on.
We kind of walk over there to him, and we're just watching. We're like trying to figure out, or Andy's trying to figure out what's he looking at. And he eventually walks back in, and Andy strikes up a conversation with him. And so we get to talking, and the guy asks Andy, what's your life list? And by the end of the story, you realize like he was setting himself up.
Oh, naturally.
Yes. So he asked Andy, he goes, how many birds have you seen? And Andy goes, at the time, he's like about 300. And so naturally, what do you do?
Oh, I've seen.
No, Andy goes, well, how many birds have you seen? And he goes, 5. And Andy says, 500?
Like in excitement. I was like, wow.
And so he goes, how many birds have you seen? 5. And Andy says, 100? And he goes, 1,000. Like, he doesn't say, no, 5,000. He's just like, it was like his punchline in the joke. Like, so.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about 800 in North America alone, that means he's gone all over the world.
Yeah. So we asked him.
What a pursuit.
Yeah. We're kind of walking back, and just one of those, he was kind of cold. He talked to us, but turned the conversation towards himself.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, you've been all over, and he was like, I have. And he was a lawyer. He said at one point, and he just kind of traveled the world. And I said, well, not much lawyering if you're just traveling, and looking at birds. But he had gone everywhere you would want to go if you're looking for a life list of that level.
Sure. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, like, where would I want to go if I were looking for birds? I mean, I would imagine the rainforest in the Amazon would be crazy, somewhere down in the jungle of South America, Peru. I mean, there'd be so many different places you could go.
It's a good start.
Yeah.
That's where I'd go.
Yeah. So you've got the log, you keep a list. With respect to the tools, I mean, like you said, I started asking you guys some questions because I started seeing birds around my house, right? And that's how I knew you were really into this, because I was like, hey, I saw this bird. It was red. And you're like, was it feeding on the ground? Did you see it at a feeder? Was it in a tree? There's all these different ways that you can identify birds just based on the information you've learned through the apps and your experience.
I should say, I also got LASIK.
Oh,
yeah. And
that helps.
It's for birding.
Yeah.
No other reason.
Really? Well, that's commitment.
Yeah, no, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because that's something that, as when I first got started on it, like that was something that Andy mentioned to me, is like, hey, you're going to start to be able to identify birds just by how they're acting, or where do you typically see them, or like, do you see this one bobbing its tail all the time, or and you think, man, I'm never going to get to that point. Like, how do I recognize that, or but as you continue to go, like it's just naturally like, okay, I'm always seeing this one at a feeder, or this, you will only see this bird feeding on the ground, or very rarely not.
Right.
But, and just their mannerisms, like how they will sit on a tree, or will they walk vertically up the tree, or will they always land on a limb, or so
that's interesting, right? I mean, you think because it's so big and so complicated, you'll never learn, but it's like anything. You dedicate some time to it, you start studying it, you learn the little things, and then I don't know, then the world opens up and you realize just how little you know, and suddenly you know a lot more than everyone else.
Yeah, the other thing I liked about Gulf Shores was, as we went to some of these different areas, especially in Dauphin Island, one of the sayings they say in the movie is, they're like, Oh, there's fallout. There's, bird
Nuclear?
fallout. Nuclear. No, bird fallout. And so
What
fallout.
is fallout? Yeah.
Fallout is basically as birds migrate over the Gulf of America that they. I couldn't say it with a straight face. They run into a storm right off the southern coast, right around Alabama, Texas, those areas. And so the storm front pushes them back out kind of to sea.
Okay.
So there's resistance. Obviously, that's a long flight. There's no tree limbs in the Gulf. So you have to, as soon as they get to land, they're landing at the first place they can, which is any of those barrier islands. And so we're going to some of these places, and you're seeing a lot of very serious, because I would say Austin and I are not serious. Like, we're looking at other things and having conversation, and there's literally people running from place to place trying to see something, and that's fine. That's
Sure.
how they want to do it.
Yeah.
Austin and I more like to observe people's behavior,
Yeah.
and then observe the birds.
Yeah, you can people watch as much as you can bird watch.
It's amazing.
Which is
people watch.
Oh, I love it. It's
And
one of my
so-
favorite things.
So as we're kind of talking to a lot of these people, they're like, "Oh, you just missed the fallout. Like, we were huge losers." And I'm like, "Gosh, I mean, I felt almost, I came back like, I maybe should just give this whole thing up because I missed the fallout the week before. Like, I should have known better." And
Guess we better go back home.
we better never, I'm putting my binos down, never doing this again. But
we've
it was
seen-
funny that there were people that the movie did such a great job in my mind of capturing the people that you'll encounter.
Sure, you play on the stereotype.
And it was perfect.
Yeah.
Which made it even funnier.
That's all. So what are the stereotypes around here? What are the birds that are around here? And what are the help me develop the question I'm trying to ask, right? You can go outside and I think the average person can identify a cardinal or a blue jay, but I just chatting with you all realized that there's about 10 different types of sparrows. There's all, and there's a wide variety of birds right here in the Midwest. So, anything that's super common or super uncommon that you've seen or that you can encourage people to see right here, right out their windows?
So there's a lot of common winter birds, right? You're going to have the same 6 or 7 species in your backyard. If you live in town, now you live kind of on the outskirts and you're surrounded by woods. So like you, Austin, you guys are potentially going to see double the amount that I would see just living in town in a backyard, feeder. And, you could see a lot more of your warblers, your really colorful singing birds. You're going to see those more out on the edge, or in, Watkins Mill State Park is one of my favorite places to go. There's still birds that'll frequent out there that I haven't seen. And I've been throughout the whole entire country, minus like 2 states.
Right.
And there's stuff out there that will pop up. Mine out there is the black-billed cuckoo. I cannot seem to find one. I've seen the yellow-billed cuckoo several times, but the black-billed is he's hard to find. So
These names just get you going,
I
don't
know.
they?
That's what I was going to say. Like, I have just so many different puns and jokes that come to mind.
and Smithville Lake is close.
Yeah.
And that will pull in some strange, especially seagulls, which seagulls are hard for me because they all look alike.
I was going to say, yeah.
I can tell the difference,
Yeah.
And people will spot them in there. I've seen pictures and they'll be like, out here in that group of 1,000, that one in the middle, that one's, an Icelandic gull. And I'm like, how do you know? And I
Yeah.
don't know, but
Yeah.
they do.
Yeah. For Christmas, another cool tool that I got was it was a camera bird feeder. So it hooks up to your Wi-Fi app on your phone or whatever. So a bird comes in,
Lands,
and it takes
and
a picture.
You're
takes
staring a
series of-
face at it.
Yeah.
I will say Austin's the youngest person ever to buy one.
It was a gift. It was a gift.
Let's
I can't-
qualify it. It was a gift.
So right now I've got maybe 9 or 10 different kinds of birds that are coming regularly. Cardinals, obviously, chickadees, woodpeckers, northern flickers, whatever. But hopefully in springtime, when migration starts happening, we'll get some different kinds. But interesting ones that I kind of look forward to or kind of stand out whenever you see them are, Baltimore Orioles and grosbeaks. I really like grosbeaks, blue grosbeak, rose-breasted grosbeak. Those are some interesting ones around here.
You'll see those in the wooded areas. I won't see them. You saw a Harris sparrow on your feeder, which is a very uncommon sparrow around here that I've only seen one in the middle of Kansas, when he had one on his camera feeder, which I thought was really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And kind of how you mentioned a little bit earlier, like there's so many different types of sparrows, and I don't know if I can't get my interest level up there enough to like really dive in and dissect the different types of sparrows. Because females are just, they're brown, and the males are mostly brown as well. They might just have some different distinct features, and it's like, I don't know if I'm going to spend that kind of time.
Well, and that's the thing, right? I mean, I think if there's some inspiration here, it's one, just learn something new. I mean, any time you can have an appreciation for something that you haven't given much thought to, I think we've won, right? You read a book, and if you can take one or two life lessons away from a book, I think that's mission accomplished for the author. So I think that'd be what I would offer here, right? Don't beat yourself up over not being super interested in it, but if you can walk outside and hear the difference between, one call versus another, or one bird that you never would have noticed before, then I think that's a win. So, So how about the community of birders in general? And like, are there ways to give back here? You talk about the Audubon Society, you talk about spending time at these places. I mean, is there I did this Missouri River 340, right? Big canoe race. Well, part of your entry fee goes to the Missouri River Relief, right? So it's a couple $100 to register or whatever. And like $100 of every person who races, their money goes to help support cleaning up the river, educating people on watershed management, managing pollution control, that sort of thing. How does the community of birders work together to help promote, aviary education?
Yeah, I think Andy could probably go a little bit more specifically into this, but the Missouri Conservation is really doing a lot this year to kind of further that. I know there's a couple of events here late spring, maybe May or something like that, where it's just getting birders involved in tracking, kind of helping them out on migratory movements of birds, and then something else as well. I'm drawing a blank though.
On Missouri Conservation?
Yeah,
they tied in with your Cornell lab of ornithology. They have basically, you have to sign up and kind of almost fill out a resume and state what you've done, and they want to make sure that they believe you're skilled enough to go out without recording devices like the bird sound ID. They want you to be able to stop at each location for like a minute to two to see which species you see over an extended period of time. You have like 4 weeks to complete a survey, and that survey goes into a national registry of surveys specifically to count birds at that specific time. Merlin Bird ID or through eBird will have all sorts of days throughout the year. It'll be like, National Bird Day, or it'll be like national, all these initiatives.
Yeah.
And you can donate to that. And most of that money goes towards those conservation efforts. I've been a duck hunter since I was little, and I have to buy a federal duck stamp every year. Yeah. And in order for me to legally, harvest birds. So I didn't realize until, later, I just bought the stamp and that was it. But since, 1931 or 33, when they started the duck stamp program, that money goes to, through the Department of the Interior, and it's used to buy land. And we live in what's called kind of the south end of the prairie pothole region, where a lot of birds, a lot of prairie birds, which is it's amazing how many birds are just 30 miles west of us in the prairie, and all the birds that breed, that live, that entire ecosystem supports thousands of different species that live and thrive in that area, extending all the way up into Canada.
Wow.
So money is used to purchase land to keep it from getting, from planting corn, because that's the only way those birds can, reproduce. And so that's been going on for almost 100 years now.
Yeah. So that's the conscience, right, of the community, that if you don't take care of it, then you don't.
You're gonna lose it.
Yeah, you're
But
going to lose it.
Yeah. So there's that aspect of it, but then there's also like a more like simple way. So I think it was about a year ago, last January, February, we went to we did a birding trip. This was like first official between the both of us. Like the two of us drove to Sax-Zimbabwe, Minnesota. It's spelled exactly like a first grader would spell it. And went up there with the intent to go birding and specifically see the great gray owl, which we successfully accomplished.
Right on.
But just a vast landscape that you'd have to cover while we're there. You're out in the middle of nowhere. Like, these are county roads, like you're not in neighborhoods, but there are homes, and not everybody supports it, but there are some people in that area who do. And so what they would do is they would fill their yards with bird feeders, and then a way of giving back. So your reward is seeing the birds, and a way that you can give back is donate money for them to be able to
buy the seed
continue to
or the
feed, yeah.
food or.
Thanks, Mary.
Mary from Sax-Zimbabwe, thank you very much. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And to that point, it's expensive. We used to live in town, and the neighbor that we, got to know and enjoyed spending time with, they loved Baltimore Orioles. And I don't know if you all know, at least this is what the gentleman shared with me. A Baltimore Oriole loves grape jelly.
Mm-hmm.
They prefer it like out of like a little dish. And
Or slices of orange.
Okay.
Price Smuckers would be my thought.
I don't know, but the guy was buying so much grape jelly that he was hiding it from his wife. he's like buying cases of grape jelly to whatever, and he's like, she can't find out about this because and I'm like, how much jelly are you buying? And he's like, cases of the stuff. They love it.
You, sir, have an addiction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was gonna say. I'm like, we don't buy grape jelly for the kids for peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. But anyway, I thought that was cool. Okay, so let's talk about that trip, and I want to maybe talk about the stereotype too. Nobody is going to balk at a couple of guys who go on a fishing trip for a weekend. They're not going to do it. They'll be like, "Hey, I'm going on camp. All right, I'm going camping this weekend." That's not.
And they usually say, "I want to go."
Right. Or, just because we're all inclusive here, girls do a shopping trip. Or you could go on a golf trip, right? I mean, there's so many different weekend trips. What makes the stereotype of two guys going to watch birds? How do you respond to that?
Yeah. Well,
most people don't.
Exactly.
I put the sign up out, but nobody else signed up, so it was just the two of us.
No, I love it. That's what I say. I want to encourage you, right? I mean, I think, and not that you need the encouragement. We're on here celebrating this passion that you have, and that's right. It's exciting to learn something new, because when I started talking with you guys about it, I started noticing, right? And you mentioned, Annie, I kind of live on the edge of town, and I had birds just land on the porch just right in front of me, and then I started noticing them and whatnot. And then I bought a martin house. Well, I didn't buy it. Classic. Got that for Father's Day, but it was too late at that point because the purple martins were already here and they didn't show up. But we had 2 nesting pair of purple martins last year.
You know why people put up martin houses?
I think mosquitoes. Yeah.
Keep the crows away.
Seriously.
Martins keep the crows away.
So there's an interesting one, because you want to see the martins, but then you put the house up, and the sparrows come in and they want to live in the martin house. So you're unhoming a sparrow who's trying to make his home, his nest in your martin house for the sake of another bird. I mean, it's just, I don't know. Feels a little bit like aviary gentrification.
Yeah,
Okay.
but like reference back to that trip to make it more manly. We went in a Toyota 4Runner. We weren't in a Subaru.
and we had MREs
We did. Right. We ate MREs
and meat, a lot of meat,
and we did not use the hot tub that was in the back of the building where we stayed.
I really wanted to.
But you don't hide it. Like people at work, they knew, hey, I'm not going to be here Friday. Where are you going? Oh, I'm going on a birding trip. I'm going up to Saxon Bog or whatever. So like they joke around about it. They make fun of you a little bit, but you don't really care. And then 2 weeks later, they're asking you what this bird is.
Yeah.
So like they're just as much interested, but they're going to let you do all the hard, do all the work.
Yeah.
So that's probably my favorite thing about this whole thing is I just took. A lot of it was my brother. He does birding surveys for work and prairie chicken surveys and these things that he does not like birders, because to him birders they tread on the environment or the habitat of that species.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, well, it's true, right? If he's not wrong. Like if you knew where a lek of prairie chickens were, not only are the hunters going to go there, but also people who want to see them, and then it's going to push a vulnerable species out. So I try to look at both sides of it. But he's one of those guys that's like, well, birders just, hunters at least buy permits and tags and ammunition, and they, do this, and all that money goes to supporting these efforts. He's like, birders just trespass on people's land and they don't give anything back, which I understand that. That is a view that a lot of people have. Like at Saxon Bog, you have some people that do not come on my properties. We will shoot you. If you're like, oh wow, these are serious people. So, but if you look at both sides, you can see the frustration. If I lived right on the edge of Watkins Mill, I'm sure I would have to get used to people walking through my backyard, just popping out like, oh, I was looking for deer sheds. I didn't know this was your backyard. Right. So I try to be mindful of it.
Kind of cuts both ways. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. But he is phenomenal. Like, I feel like I'm somewhat decent at identifying stuff. And then I'll be like, Tyler, what do you think this is? And he's like, well, it's clearly this, idiot. And I'm like, oh, So he kind of helped get me he put me on locations of where things were, which was unique. And then I kind of ran with it on my own, just out of fun and going to Watkins Mill. And then, through being friends with Austin, Austin kind of reluctantly picked it up later, then ran with it. And then he kind of has a group of, folks that he's influenced, and I've influenced others. And I'll get the most random texts from people that I never would imagine. And they'll be like, what is this bird? And I'm like, well, I wasn't expecting that. And so it's kind of opened up the floodgate of manly men who aren't old, who aren't retired, who have a deep interest in knowing, what something is.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. I mean,
I don't think they want me to share their names, but at the end of the episode, I'm going to.
That's awesome. And that's, I think, a growth mindset too. You're never too old to learn something new. And, sometimes when you're trying to learn something new and you kind of look stupid trying to, I don't know if you've never swung a golf club before, it feels really awkward until you kind of figure that out or, learn something new.
You do have to have thick skin though. I mean, going on a birding trip with another grown man, you have to have thick skin. Which
is funny because that's what I'm saying. Like we haven't cracked the nut yet, but that's what I'm trying to figure out, like why you would have to have thick skin, because nobody says anything but positive things when I talk about going mountain climbing. I go hiking, right? I'm going to go camp for a weekend. I'm going to go climb a 14er. I'm going to come back home and it's going to be awesome. And I'm taking a nature bath the entire time. And that, my wife has said, you go out and you spend time in nature. I say, top of a mountain is where I feel closest to God. And I come back and for 6 weeks to 10 weeks, I'm a different person. So you can go out and encounter nature and wildlife and see birds and, flora and fauna and have that same experience. So that'd be another good question for y'all. What or how has bird watching changed your perspective on nature and wildlife as a whole? Right? I mean, you grew up hunting, so this is a lot different than hunting. You're not trying to kill; you're trying to appreciate.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting because before birding was a thing, like the big year was killing as many birds as you could. And if you watch that movie, The Big Year, it kind of gives an intro to that. Like that's what birding used to be, was killing as many birds as you could. Well, hey, now there's no more birds to kill. So they had to take a step back.
Yeah.
Let's identify the most birds that we can. But I don't know. Like I said earlier, but before this, a bird was a bird was a bird. It wasn't, it was something that you occasionally accidentally tagged when you're driving down the highway.
I did identify a bird in Hawaii that was struck by a car because I'd seen several of them flying. I was like, what is that bird? Like, we're between the two volcanoes, and I finally saw a dead one, and I pulled over. My wife's like, what are you doing? And I pick up this dead bird, and I'm examining it, and I went, aha, I know what it is. So,
but yeah, so, I mean, you're not paying attention to this. And then once you do, and as I mentioned earlier, like identifying how certain birds act and behave, like you start to see the intricacies of God's creation.
Yeah. Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Right.
At that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. Like you have to learn how to turn it on and turn it off. Because if it's on all the time, you're going to make somebody in your household
really uncomfortable.
Yes, all of them.
Yeah. Can we talk about something other than plants?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Austin's right. Like for me, I've learned I like taking, my wife still wonders why I do this, but I like taking a trip by myself. Just completely alone. And I did that before Austin and I went up to Minnesota. I had done that by myself, made that trip up to Saxon Bog for a few days, slept in the back of my car. I try to do things like as cheaply and as like I'm going to use my jet boil and I'm making ramen or coffee out of my percolator.
Yeah.
Like I want to be completely reliant on me going out into nature. You know, I've gone to Southern Arizona in the Madera Canyon around Nogales, Mexico, a few years ago by myself for a week. Went to Saguaro National Park. Like I like doing these things, and my phone died in the middle of it when I was outside Nogales, and there was Border Patrol helicopters flying, and I know for a fact I saw a convoy of migrants in these vehicles. I mean, probably wasn't the safest place to be, but I did find the blue mountain gem hummingbird I was looking for, along with the white-eared hummingbird, so I was proud. But I like these trips because
totally worth it.
But I find that the more desirable birds that you are looking for are in some of the most remote places in nature. You're not gonna. You could get lucky and see something that's a straggler, but for like I went down there to find the elegant trogon, and that was the bird to look for. But it brought me to these canyons in southern Arizona, and I'm walking up these mountains. I'm going, through these streams that, at one point they're like, oh, there's been a lot of panthers, mountain lions seen. I'm like, what? And I guess I'm in that part of the country, and you're in beautiful areas that there's nothing else that would bring you there unless you happen to live there.
Right.
And it's like a state park. You're going to go take a walk in. But for me, going to one of those areas or, going to Hawaii, even there, like most people want to go to the beach. No, I wanted to go up into the mountains and hike.
Yeah.
And I didn't run into a lot of people there. I was just with my wife and we were alone in these remote kapukas, I believe they call them. It's just forests that the lava fields have spared.
Mm-hmm. And
we're in there, and it's like a rainforest. And there's no one else there. And so you see some amazing creatures. So to me, that's the highlight is the most special places I would go that I've seen birds. The only way I got there was because of wanting to see something.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's awesome. I mean, that's the pearl of great price. I mean, you think about something that's found that's valuable in a field, you sell everything and go buy the field so that you can be around it, right? I mean, these things start costing you things, and it's worth it when you get to experience it. So super cool. All right, last couple questions, and take them in whatever order you want. What do you hope to achieve or experience as a bird watcher in the future, and or how would you encourage, or what advice would you have for a newer bird watcher as they were moving forward with this?
For a newer bird watcher, it's a simple hobby to get into. It's probably one of the cheapest as well.
And it doesn't have to be complicated.
No, you can get as deep or as shallow as you want to into it, and you can be casual, or you can do your film study like Andy does, and just he knows exactly what he wants to see,
like
where he's going to find it. Yeah. That's why everybody goes to Andy, because like,
game plan.
Hey, give me the answers to the test.
Yeah.
So if you're questioning it, if you're like, golly, these guys are weird, like just give it a shot. See what you think. I'd encourage you to start in springtime, because that's when you're going to see the most interesting birds around here. And then future, I think the drive is always, for me anyways, is always to see something new. Like we said, there's 800 plus different species in North America. There's thousands in the world. So, always that drive to find or see something new is always there. And it's interesting, right? Because there's birds that I haven't seen, and I would say that I'm mildly intentional in my birding, and there's other casual birders who have seen birds that I haven't. Right. That stinking scissor-tail flycatcher still keeps eluding me. But I know people who have seen it, So there's that, or, birds that are rare here are common elsewhere, right? And so, I've been, I've had the pleasure of being to Europe, Italy, Greece, Turkey, and I've got to see birds that are common there that you're not going to see over here, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, those are fun ones that you get to add to your life list, and those are stories that you get to tell.
Absolutely. I'm sitting here thinking, you could go to Europe and you could say, oh, I saw the Pantheon, or I saw the Acropolis, right? But while I was there, I also saw something else, right? And so many people,
monk parakeet.
Yeah, some people would say, that's all I've seen, and that's, so you could say I have another layer, which is super cool.
So that was a story I was going to say was, I'll get into your question, but we went to Gettysburg. We went out east this past summer, and I was over by Little Round Top, and but I also, in the back of my mind, I was like, there are Virginia rails out here, and I want to see one, because I'd seen a few other rails, but not the Virginia rail. And so while at Little Round Top appreciating history and what unfolded there, I saw Virginia rails. So the layer, right, is, I went to Gettysburg, and I was at Little Round Top, and I saw Virginia rail. And you didn't.
That's right.
So most people don't care.
Anybody can study history, but I saw a bird too.
I combined them.
That's right.
The clashing of studies.
It's hitting me that you guys are like wildcrats.
That's a great show.
I know it is.
I'm Chris.
That's right. I'm just waiting for you guys to turn into the animal now. You'll hit the button.
Powers.
Hit the button.
Which bird am I going to become?
Yeah. Well, so I look at it too, like getting some binoculars. And for me, it is just hiking. Like most guys, like you said, most guys like to hike, right? Be outdoors, go hiking. But then I would challenge the new, nature enthusiasts, like, hey, is that a redbud? Is that a pawpaw? What is that tree, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they look similar in the winter, right? But in the summer, you can tell. So it's like, hey, know what's around you. Be knowledgeable. I read Undaunted Courage, Lewis and Clark book on their entire expedition. And like you said, flora and fauna. And that's a phrase they use a lot, because these guys were naturalists. They identified a lot of birds. One, Austin, one of the William Clark or Meriwether Lewis birds.
The Clark's Nutcracker?
Yeah, excellent. Right.
Yeah.
So you look at, well, hey, who named that? Oh, William Clark named that bird, right? He was the first one to see it. And So that was a really good book, but it also looked at like these guys were drawing, they were doing things, at the time that Thomas Jefferson wanted. He wanted to collect these specimens. So I'm like, hey, if Lewis and Clark aren't cool, who is?
Yeah.
Right. So, so it's just kind of being outdoors and being able to identify what's around you is kind of pushes my abilities mentally. I don't pride myself on being a top A student or having a high ACT score, but I also like to know useful information of trees and birds and things that I think is around me. Upcoming this year, I would love to. I never thought when I started looking for birds, like 500 to me is a lot. That's a milestone. And I'm getting there. And this August, we're going to go to Alaska. And I told my wife, we walk through the cemetery sometimes when we go for a walk. And so I was looking at some of the headstones and I said, all I want on mine is my final bird count number. And she's like, you're so weird. And, so my goal.
Hey, you can't take it with you go. So you might as well celebrate it with everybody else.
So I would, and I've, like Austin said, I do chart out my vacations just so I know it's there. And I try to build my memory on like just recalling what a picture was and being able to see it in real life. And, oh, that's what this bird is without having to flip through a page.
Yeah.
And it's like Pictionary to me or a matching game. So that's something I'm looking forward to. And if I could get to that 500 number this year, that would be a life goal accomplished, starting in 2018, knowing, hey, I'd love to be in retirement hitting that 500, and here I am, 8 years later, maybe getting there.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what advice would you have for the newbie?
I would say just start off simple.
Yeah.
Find a place around you, where you can go out, get out in nature. And to me, that's what it all kind of boils back to is God reveals himself through nature and has since the beginning of creation. And, I've seen some of the most amazing things sitting in a deer stand or in a duck blind or walking on a beach with Austin that no one else has ever seen, right? It's like, hey, I'm here at this time when this thing just happened.
Yeah.
And to me, that only, brings the truth even more real to me that there is a creator.
Yeah.
God created this and I witnessed it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. All right, let's leave it there. Any final words of advice or comments before we let everybody go?
I have one question. Austin, what's the number one bird on your list to see next?
Oh,
To see next.
What's your top goal? You have one? I know you're going on vacation here soon.
Yeah, so we're going Caribbean. I've researched a little bit. The route of the cruise got changed, so I've kind of had to rework a little bit of that. See, you've always got one in mind, and like that's going to take you to the place where you want to go see it.
Yeah,
I know you and I have talked about going to
Brownsville,
Texas.
It wouldn't happen to be a Dick Sissel, would it?
No,
there's a lot of those around here.
I think a lot of mine just come from the ones that like I should have seen this bird by now, and it's eluded me.
So is it a cock of the rock?
No, it is not.
Yours is the scissortail flycatcher.
But then we were also in Colorado, and I was like, I'm gonna be Andy right now. I'm gonna figure out where this bird is. I'm gonna go to the place. I'm gonna find it, and it was a ptarmigan.
Yeah,
never saw it. And
it's a bird you'll see on top of top of a mountain, Chris.
Yeah, super frustrating.
Yeah.
See, I've been looking for a willy wagtail for years.
Maybe someday.
Maybe someday.
But I will say my favorite bird on my list is the California condor.
And so when you went to the Grand Canyon, you saw it.
That's a big bird.
The largest North American bird. Yeah, actually, I saw it at Zion National Park. Actually,
Zion, yeah. So I'd gone down there years ago and didn't even think to look for one because I wasn't there yet.
Yep. What your favorite bird?
My favorite bird
that you've seen.
That I've seen. Boy, that's a tough one. I'd say the painted bunting has always intrigued me. And again, a bird you'll see South Caribbean. I saw one in Johnson County, Kansas, and to me that was not expected. and it was a male, brightly colored, and so I was really happy with that.
Beautiful bird.
That's awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. This has been the Son of the Law podcast. Have a great day.
Slap hands.
That's it. Nice job, guys.
That was fun.
Yeah. How long do you think we talked?
Hour and a half.
Hour and 15.
1 hour and 30 minutes on the button.